I expect a few more will probably join in the next couple of minutes, but I think it's probably a good idea that we get going straight away. We've only got an hour this evening, and I'd just like to open by thanking our panelists for joining us this evening. All are joining from big global asset managers, and they will be able to share a wealth of experience with you in terms of the application process and 9 tips to nail that application if you're applying for internships or graduate roles. So this is your time to ask questions. Just a quick intro on GAIN for those of you who are new to us. So GAIN is a charity, and we had set up to increase the number of young women applying to roles within investment management. There are not enough women applying to roles in investment at the moment, and we're trying to increase that by educating school and university students about what a career in investment looks like, and connecting you with the industry through various programs that we run, which culminates in our internship program for penultimate final year undergraduates and master students as well. But the purpose of this evening is to get you connected with these 3 lovely ladies, and make sure you reach out to all the panelists as well at the end. Well, a really important part of this process is networking, and I'm sure all of them will be open to you connecting with them on LinkedIn to follow up on this session. Just a quick shout out. I mentioned the internship program that is open at the moment for student applications and will be until the 3rd week of October, I think it is. So make sure you get that application early. This is hiring for summer 23 internships. We've got over 200 internships available with over 120 companies involved. So a great opportunity if you're looking to get experience in the sector ahead of applying for a graduate role later on. Any school students who are on the line, we have also just opened a competition for school teams. It's an investment talent challenge, which is a stock pitch challenge. That's open for applications now as well. All the information is on our website. You go there and you hit the application button. Right, so I'm going to start by asking all our panelists to introduce themselves, to give a
background on what they do and how they've got into the industry, and then they'll go straight into sharing some of their tips. Devyn, can I start with you, please?
Yeah, of course. Hi, everyone, and thank you for taking some time out of your day to join us today. My name's Devyn Ceppetelli. I am a Senior Talent Acquisition Associate at Polen Capital. I have spent about 5 years in the industry, previously worked at Fidelity and also was involved in their investment research recruiting at the undergrad and MBA space, and currently at Polen oversee our intern program as well. And we've been fortunate enough to have a GAIN intern the past year, so hopefully you have heard of Polen. As Tanya mentioned, we're a boutique-sized company in the investment management industry, but have a great global presence. So excited to be here. I will also drop my email in the chat, so I welcome you all to reach out. I'm happy to talk further about our firm in greater detail. So thank you.
Thank you, Devyn. Faye?
Sure. Lovely to meet everyone. Thank you for joining. So I work at Franklin Templeton. We are global asset managers. We're based in the UK in Edinburgh and London, but throughout the globe. And I've worked at Franklin for about 16 years, and I've been in the talent acquisition space for about 20. So I look after the more early talent within the team. So we have our internship program, and we were lucky enough to have 2 GAIN students in the summer internship program, and looking forward to hopefully more this year. And we also have a graduate program that we're just starting this year. So excited to share experience and look forward to chatting with you.
Great, thank you. And Perry?
Hi everyone, I'm Perry, and it's really nice to be here. Really excited to see all of you and speak to you. I'm currently an associate in client group, so I'm mainly in sales in London, and I look after the UK at Bernstein, which is a global asset manager. We manage just under 800 billion, so quite big, but we're headquartered in Nashville, so a very global company. I just finished a traineeship at Janus Henderson and have been here for just under a month. So I'm very new to the industry, but I have also just been through the recruitment process. So I'm hoping that I can share some really good tips that are hopefully still really relevant, that can help you get access into the asset management industry.
Brilliant, thank you very much. So we've got two people on the talent acquisition side and somebody who's just been through it. So between them, I think we should be able to cover all your questions. But Devyn, I'm going to kick off with you. Maybe do you want to talk about your first tip, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say first, as you're preparing for a career in investment management, there's a lot of different pieces that you can do to prepare. When it comes to the recruiting process, number one is to know your timelines. At this point, hopefully you all have heard a little bit about the difference between the buy side and the sell side opportunities. Both sides have various recruiting timelines. Some are a lot earlier than others. So make sure you're thinking about firms that you may want to work at, visiting their website where many recruiting timelines are published. If they're not, you can always reach out to recruiters on LinkedIn who will be able to share a little bit more about that. And just make sure that you're giving yourself ample time to prepare your application once you're aware of the timeline, so that you're set up for success in the process. And then also have a good understanding for when the actual internship takes place. Most programs run over the summer, but other firms may have smaller internship programs that you could do during the school year. So number one rule is know your timeline.
Just touching on the internship, there may be some students here looking at doing graduate applications, but for you, and I don't know, you can't speak for all companies, but an internship, is it sort of an essential thing to have under your belt if you're going to apply for sort of graduate application?
I would absolutely not. And I hope that everyone feels empowered to apply to internships, regardless as to if you actually have had work experience on your resume. There are a ton of different ways that you can differentiate your application, show your passion for the industry. One of them being participating in GAIN. It's incredible. And when I see that on a resume, it's very clear to me that you're being thoughtful about pursuing this career, that you're passionate about this space. So there are other ways, including investment clubs on campus, courses you've taken. Make sure that you're highlighting those on your resume for sure, but do not let lack of a corporate internship, for lack of a better words, deter you from applying.
Perry, you're nodding. Is there anything more you'd like to add on that, having just been through it all yourself?
100%. I did not do an internship. I unfortunately was completing my degree also in history, so I'm not the key economics finance grad. It was COVID, so mine actually got cancelled, so I was very worried, but I secured more than one role. And it is, as Devyn was saying, it's about showing passion. I'm a GAIN alumna as well, attending events. When you're tailoring your applications, which we'll talk about later, it's like being really meaningful and showing that you actually want to be in this industry and you've done some research. You do not have to do an internship.
Brilliant. And Faye, any more that you would add in terms of people applying? Perry just touched on the fact that she did history. Do you want to talk any more about, degree disciplines and applying to roles within investment?
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't put that off. I mean, we had students applying that had all sorts of disciplines, and actually what the business said was that they really liked that they brought that different insights and different experience. So don't let anything put you off. I think just go for it, and if you're interested, your interest will shine through. So don't count yourself out before you've started.
Brilliant. And in terms of timelines, how long typically does the whole process take for you when you're applying for internships or for graduate applications?
For the summer internship program?
Yes.
And graduate, yeah. So to start with the summer, what we're doing, we advertise it in October time, and then we start our interviews November, December, sometimes creeping into January, and then look to make our offers straight after that, with starting in June time. So it can take quite a while. And we do often reach out to explain that or say that at the point where you apply. So just bear that in mind, that by the time the applications comes through and you sieve them and then you set up the interviews, that there can be a delay. And we're just working out the timeframes actually for the graduate program, but it will be similar. Again, we'll be interviewing about the same time and looking to make offers in the kind of new year, in March and April time.
Great. And then just coming on to Faye, if I stay with you, what should be included in the application, and you know, maybe you can give some tips around that, what you're looking for.
So in terms of what we ask people to provide, we have things set up on our system that it's a specific questionnaire that we ask candidates to submit their CV and answer the questionnaire. And what I would say is, when you are applying, is to make sure that if you're asked to answer a question, you fully answer it. If you miss out a step, when we have a lot of applicants, that is an automatic thing that can discount you from being considered. So when you are applying, definitely make sure you complete everything that's asked of you. CV is what we ask for, and we don't actually specifically ask for a cover letter. And I know that can be something that you don't know whether to add or not. I would always encourage adding a cover letter if you can, because in there you can show the research that you've done, why you're interested, and what you can bring. And I would suggest that you attach the cover letter to your CV, because often they get separated. And I think if you can keep them together, it means that when they're passed from one department to the next, it goes together. So that's what we ask for, is just some questions and then CV. Some of the questions can be things like your salary, why you're interested in, or salary expectations, why you're interested in the position, when year of graduation, and then there's often that open text field where we're just looking for you to demonstrate you've done your research and your interest in the role.
Great. I think for the GAIN internship program, we don't actually ask for a cover letter because we ask a number of questions within the actual application. But I think that's the thing, is that each of the, you know, you can apply directly to firms and also go through GAIN, and all of them are slightly different. So unfortunately, it's not a sort of copy and paste job. You know, you are going to have to do your research. And I think that probably brings us on, Devyn, to one of the next points, is researching the company that you are applying to.
Yes, that's definitely a key point in the process, and will help you to stand out in the application and interview process. When I'm speaking with students, I definitely notice when they mention potentially recent articles about the firm that have been in the news, or mergers and acquisitions, or value statements, things that show that you've done your due diligence and that the mission resonates with you, things like that. And then I would say also using your network on LinkedIn can go a long way, so that you're able to learn more about the program and speak to the recruiter about why it excites you, and have more concrete examples in those conversations rather than being generic. As Faye said, we can receive a lot of applications, so little things like that do go a long way.
Perry, when you were doing the recruitment process and you had to research the companies you were applying to, where did you go for that information?
Mainly Google, looking literally on the news tab, see what they're doing, if they bought any companies, if they're doing well, if the stock price. That's one thing that I try to do, is find out the stock price, if they're performing badly, if they're doing really well. It's something more usually if they're doing well, you could bring up in the interview and say, you know, I've seen you've been performing really, really well. Is this because of X? Is this because of Y? A lot of the time when you go on the website, the earnings reports will be on there if they're a listed company. So you can look at more detailed things like that, but they'll have all of their unique values that you can tell a lot about a company by looking at that. They'll have insights, they'll have so many resources just on Google by typing in their name, and just on the website. So you could go on LinkedIn as well and have a look at people, but the website is probably where I used to start the most. There's so many resources on there.
And Perry, carrying on with you, probably we move on to the third tip, the tailoring your communications. Do you want to sort of talk a bit more about that?
Yes, definitely. So tailoring your communications, when you're writing your cover letters, if you can find out who the recruiter is, that would be absolutely fantastic, because that shows without even doing much, you've done your research. Also doing events like Gain and you see people from the company that you're applying to. If you reach out to that person, ask them a quick few questions. I would like to know about the culture at AB or at Polen or Fidelity or wherever. They'll be usually more than happy to reply. You can then talk about that in the interview. You can put that down, really tailoring your application to that firm to show that you've actually made an effort and you're not just copying and pasting like we've said. That usually doesn't run well. I mean, I'm sure Faye and Devyn read hundreds of applications, so anything that can make them stand out and that you've done that little bit extra and diversified is key.
Faye, having seen loads of applications, what really stands out to you when you're looking for some tailoring?
I think those that have taken the time to take the job spec, go through with a highlighter, pull out the keywords, and then somehow weave them into your application. And your first personal statement, I would encourage you to keep a personal statement in your CV, because that's a great opportunity to personalize it and also pull in some of those key things from the job spec that is hard to weave in if you haven't got experience, but you can probably talk to your interest or why you want to get exposure. So use that initial part of your CV to show that you've looked at the job spec. And just anything of relevance that you've done, whether it's a one-day course, a LinkedIn course, put it in, because it shows that you are interested in the industry and what you've done to gain exposure.
Brilliant. I think one of the things that I've seen a lot of is quite a lot of copy and pasting sometimes, and that's really obvious when that's done. And one of the things that really makes my heart sink every time is when they've copy and pasted and students are applying to investment banking roles, and they're also applying to investment manager roles, and they leave the investment banking piece in there. And for me, that's like as you say, we've got hundreds and hundreds of applications. That's an automatic sort of bin. So it's just such a shame and a waste of time to apply to these roles if you're going to copy and paste. So I think tailoring your application is absolutely key. Devyn, we'll come to you next. So when you've got this application and you're looking through and you quite like them, what else are you doing? I mean, talking about social media presence, and are you investigating what their LinkedIn profile and things like that at that point?
Yeah, so I will, as a second step, once I've taken a look at an application and am interested in the candidate, I will go right to LinkedIn, see if their profile's up to date. That's actually something that I run into often. So sometimes students they'll be graduating early or their graduation date's delayed and they haven't updated their resume or LinkedIn. So sometimes if I see the wrong class year, that can automatically disqualify someone. And then they'll reach out to me and let me know they're actually graduating then, so they are eligible. So always make sure your LinkedIn is updated with your class year, courses you've taken, clubs you're involved in. I love when people have a picture because it helps you put a name to a face. So I would recommend always having a picture. But yes, LinkedIn is definitely the next place that I would go.
Brilliant. And on that LinkedIn picture note, just top tip I would give, some of the pictures I've seen are not entirely professional, and I think that's really important that you have a professional. It doesn't have to be a professional headshot, but professional dress, ideally a sort of headshot, doesn't need to be a full length picture, and don't have a drink in your hand or something like that, or just small things, but you need to be presenting a professional image. It's a social network, but it's a professional one. Faye, do you look at any other social networks other than LinkedIn, or is it really just sort of stop at that?
Just LinkedIn, and I would say that's why it's so important to keep it consistent with what you're putting your CV, what's on LinkedIn with your CV. But also email addresses, try and keep them professional. And also I had a scenario with a voicemail. So every time I had to to leave a message, I got this horrendous voicemail that was not at all professional. So think beyond the obvious as well.
That's a really good point. Perry, do you use LinkedIn regularly, and did you find that helped when you were in the application process?
Yes, definitely. It's always a little boost when you've applied to something and then somebody anonymously views your LinkedIn. But as Faye and Devyn are saying, it's a really great way to put a bit more colour into your CV. So definitely link them up. But I used to post a lot on there. Any GAIN event that I went to, I would thank the GAIN attendees. I'd put what I learned, maybe something really valuable. Or if I attended any other conferences for student networks, anything you're doing that you think could be valuable, charity. It doesn't have to be completely professional, just something that's about you and is really, really helpful for a recruiter to see what you're like. And then also my new job now at Alliance Bernstein, I also got approached for that on LinkedIn. So it is a really, really, really useful tool. So I can't recommend it enough, really.
Brilliant. Faye, in terms of, what else they should include in the application, is there anything else that you'd want to highlight at this point?
I wouldn't go to town on adding lots and lots of different examples of your work and things, because I'll be honest and say that unless they've been asked for, they won't be reviewed, but you can provide that when asked for. I think it's more the CV, making sure that that is really tidy and there's different formats that you can use, and research the format that works best for you and get your cover letter sorted. And I can go through the different formats if you want, or we can leave that till later, Tracey, if you want.
Why not? Let's do the formats now. I think that'd be really useful. Yeah.
We were looking through, because we were giving the interns a bit of training on that, and so we were doing a bit of research, and so there are, in our mind, and Devyn and Perry, you might have other ideas, but we thought there's the chronological, which is essentially the reverse chronological, which is probably the best for this level of experience that you've got. There are functional based CVs that are more skill based and achievement based, and I would say that's probably when you've got a little bit more experience and project work that you can call upon, or you can have a combination of the two. But there's a lot of CVs that are coming in at the moment that have got bits down the side, they've got links, they've got pie charts, and they look great if you're maybe applying for something that you need to show your abilities, digital marketing or things like that. But it's all a bit much. And what happens is that it's all very bullet point, and you don't get that feel and that personal feel for someone's written ability and really their passion for the role. It becomes very fact-based. So just watch, have a think about what you think represents you best, because it is a personal way of presenting yourself. But be aware that if we're bombarded with facts, that's almost too much. So don't cram so much into it that you lose that personal touch, would be my advice, but I don't know what others feel.
Devyn, would you agree?
Yeah, I would agree. I think the chronological is how I see, that's like in my mind how I prefer to read through the story. Your resume tells your story, and that makes most sense in my mind to me. So yeah, I don't think I would add anything else there.
And the sort of stuff that you're looking to see is work experience, societies involved with at university.
Exactly. One thing that I have seen trending over the past couple of years that I think is fun and also helps to differentiate you is an interest section at the bottom. Even if it's just something like silly, like baking, or like intricate hobbies that you have. It's a good way to help catch someone's eye and also help strike conversation during the interview as kind of a small talk item. So that's the only other piece I would include kind of below the skills that you list.
Perry, anything else that you included?
Yes, I definitely had an interest. I think the same. I tried to kind of stick to the golden rule of 3 when it came to experiences. I'm just out of uni. So the things I did at 16 as a part-time job weren't that relevant, but the last 3 years were definitely relevant. So try not to keep really irrelevant things on there. But some of the feedback I had from my recent CV is that it's got to be readable. You know, like what Faye's saying, you don't want loads of information on there where the recruiter's trying to connect the dots and find out, wait, what did you do this year? Why is there a gap here? Try and make it nice and readable, palatable. You can usually find really nice templates online. And yeah, definitely agree with what both Faye and Devyn have said, but mainly it has to be readable, which I think feeds into our next tip anyway.
Yeah, I think just touching on that point, don't leave gaps in your CV if you can help it, because otherwise you're expecting the recruiter to do all the sort of detective work as to what might have been there, and they haven't got the time to do that. So make it as easy as possible for them to read your CV. And I think it goes without saying, spell check, grammar check, get somebody else to read it. Really, really important. Proofread it.
Tanya, I did have one suggestion actually, which I think helped on mine. I try to quantify a lot of things. So I didn't just say, you know, helping at this. When I worked in sales part-time, I said, you know, I added to X amount of sales, but then the objectives that I used in that behavior were quite made me quite appealing. I think I didn't just say added to sales. I said conversed with customers or helped customers do this, which gave me a bit of life, but then also gave, like what Faye was saying, you don't want all the facts, but you do also want a bit of life. So try and find that medium of quantifying things, but also showing you're a human being who can talk to people and help people.
Brilliant.
I agree with that, because you could say that you've shadowed, but actually you could turn that into something better, learn or gained experience within, you know, use those positive, transformed, delivered, produced, organized, that sort of positive language that gives really strong messages.
Brilliant. We have got a question which I might just interject with now because it's something we've just been talking about. The question is, do you actually need LinkedIn to succeed? I don't have one. So I just think in terms of everyone's views on LinkedIn and the importance of it.
I think you have to have it.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Faye.
No, you go, Devyn.
I think I'm a little bit torn on this question. I think when properly used, it can be pivotal in your networking and meeting people. For like, if I have a position that I'm recruiting for, I'm immediately looking in my network and sharing opportunities. So in that sense, it can definitely help you. I wouldn't say I don't immediately disqualify someone when I see that they don't have a LinkedIn. It's just kind of another data point. And again, helps tell your full story, but I would recommend getting one.
I agree. I think we are in a digital age now, so I think it's not completely necessary, but I think it probably does help a lot, and it really does help tie in your CV and paint a more human picture of you and give a better understanding.
I think with LinkedIn, from not just for applications and getting jobs, but just as a networking tool, it's super useful. And as you go through your career, I think you'll find it more and more useful because your network just exponentially expand as you go from different roles to different roles. And it's a great way for firms to communicate with you. So again, use LinkedIn a lot, for example, to get the message out. So I would recommend it definitely if you can get your LinkedIn profile sorted. Just coming back to our tips, I think one of the other tips we had, Devyn, was don't send your application immediately. I don't know whether you want to expand on that.
Yeah, I think we touched on that a little bit earlier, but I think patience is best in these processes because you don't want to immediately submit your resume and then realize you forgot to include something or made a typo. Most application periods are at least, I would say, 3 weeks. We keep ours open for a month, so you have time. And from the recruiting perspective, I'm kind of reviewing them on a rolling basis, so it's not an instance of the earlier the better. Take your time, make sure that you've done your research and feel confident before you submit your resume.
Brilliant. We have got a couple of questions. Please could you provide tips for the Gain Insight event application? Also, when will the applications open? The Insight event, this is the first year, the Insight program for first year undergraduates. That actually takes place in the spring term. So applications will open for that. I think it's November. So keep a lookout for that. Anybody who isn't receiving our student newsletter, please do sign up via the website so that you get that fortnightly update. And that basically lists everything that's coming up and how to apply, but also just general Gain news as well, so that you're fully aware of everything that's going on. Another question, should I include a virtual experience program on my CV? Faye, thoughts on that?
I'm not sure I know what that is.
Is that virtual work experience maybe?
Well, I think maybe it's referring to virtual internships, which have obviously grown in popularity since COVID. I think Bright Network do a lot of them.
I thought you meant a virtual, as in, yeah, okay, I was on a more digital strand there, so absolutely.
Anyway, I'm not too sure.
No, I think that's right. I think, yeah, virtual work experience or virtual internship, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, because I mean, just because you weren't in the office, you still learn a tremendous amount. So yeah, absolutely, and you should show how you learn to work virtually, because it is a different way of working, and a lot of companies are global, and so although we're in the office, we can't always be in the office with everyone. So those tips that you learn to work virtually are still very, very relevant. So 100% include them.
Brilliant. Got another question here. Devyn, maybe you can answer this. Please, can you advise how someone who's changing careers, starting over, should go about applying?
Yeah, I would say kind of tying back to what we were talking about earlier, we're all very excited when we see someone that brings a unique background, diverse perspective. So really lean into that, and especially in investment management, when everyone has access to the same type of research, it's really attractive to a recruiter when I see that you're able to bring new industry experience, just something a little bit different. But with that being said, I would also take the approach of making sure that you are highlighting areas that are skills that would translate well. For example, if you had some sort of like writing internship or something that involved written communications, that also translates really well to investment research. So make sure you're highlighting that, showing your intellectual curiosity. A lot of skills are transferable, so just make sure that you're pulling those out if you're coming from a different career path.
Brilliant. Faye, any more to add on that?
Oh, sorry, I thought you said Perry.
Sorry,
Go ahead,
Faye. No, Perry, I'll come to you in a bit.
I would say don't be put off applying, because I just had a CV for somebody whose career had been a jockey, which is obviously not relevant, and he applied for an investment role, and he made such a compelling cover letter, and he was able to pull out what he learned, that I was just so intrigued by it. I forwarded it on to the team, and he didn't get the job, but he got to the final stages. So don't ever be put off if you are transferring careers, but do make sure you make your application and explain why and what you can bring.
Brilliant, thank you. And Perry, sorry, come to you.
I'd only add that obviously, as we've mentioned, I wasn't from an economics background or a finance background. So as Faye and Devyn have both said, don't let it put you off. And sometimes it's really good to stand out and be different. But it's also great to have an economics degree because you've got that relevant experience. But yeah, definitely don't be put off by changing industry. Every skill is valuable.
Agreed. Yes, I think just to give you some idea on numbers, in terms of the applicants we had for the internship program that just has gone through this summer, about half were finance, maths, economics students. About a quarter were art students, a lot of language students and humanities in there, and then a quarter about science, sort of science STEM sort of subjects. So we are looking for a real mix, and a lot of companies say to us they don't just want finance, maths, economics students. So don't let that put you off at all. Just coming to a question from Elisa. Hi, I've heard from people in the industry that it is impossible to get in as a graduate if you don't have finance specific work experience. How true is that? Faye, do you want to answer that one?
Well, I can only really talk from a Franklin perspective, but we're really open-minded, and we don't need that experience. I think you probably have to work a little bit harder at interview to explain why you're interested and have done your research. But for us, it's more what you can bring in terms of, you know, your abilities, your mindset, and that flexibility to be able to adapt to different roles. So for us, it's not essential.
Devyn, you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I would echo Faye's sentiment, and this is an instance where I don't normally take a look at cover letters unless it's a resume that I am like, oh, they may be making a switch, and that would be a great way to really show the recruiter why you're interested in your cover letter. We're very open-minded as well. Like, I again really would say that we look for all types of backgrounds, and not just finance and economics. So you do have to work a little bit harder in showing that interest, but there are plenty of ways to do that through outreach, networking, cover letter. And if you do get an interview, you can showcase that there for sure.
Yeah, Lisa, I would just add, I don't know what year you are in at university, but so the internship program we set up was so that students could get some work experience and internship before they applied to the graduate programs. So if you're in your penultimate or your final year, you're eligible for the internship, and so I'd encourage you to apply to that. But as everyone's saying, you don't have to do an internship, but it's just another route, and you can apply directly to the firms, or you can apply through a program like GAIN. So there's lots of different options open to you. I'm just going to come to another question. Devyn, if I come back to you on this one, should I complete a course in Excel for my accounting 1-year placement application? I have no experience at all in accounting, so I thought it could help.
Yes, I think that's a great way to show that you're proactive, and it can only help you in any process. I think in today's day and age where analytics and data insights are becoming more and more a part of every role, or a part of many roles, even if you don't end up pursuing accounting, that will lend itself well. Excel is also a great skill to have in investment management career. So yes to both.
Perry, did you do any sort of Excel courses before going into Janice?
I did some courses on Coursera, I think it's called, or Coursera. Yeah. And also YouTube is your greatest friend. You can learn lots. I still look at things on YouTube sometimes when I need to learn things. I also did a few coding courses, which can help also show your interest if you are going to be investment making decision applications. That can really put you forward, computer skills. So yes, I would recommend doing that.
Faye, would you say any more about Excel from your perspective at Franklin Templeton?
I would say that was one of the call out skills that the leaders asked for when we were screening CVs. It was ability in Excel. So anything you can do to help gain exposure to that, definitely go for it.
The other thing, channel I think is really good for Excel is LinkedIn Learning. So they have a learning platform on that, and there's a lot of free content on there that you can do courses on. And probably just worth flagging as well that the successful interns on the GAIN internship program all get put through a training program ahead of their internship. And that's to cover everything sort of financial modeling, cash flow analysis, all of that, and a heavy sort of focus on Excel. So that the idea being, so when you start your internship, you'll very much hit the ground running, and it'll be a useful experience both for you and the firm that's hired you. So yes, okay, I hope that answers your question. We have a question from Ekaterina. I am a PhD student and will most likely have to graduate in spring. Is it generally possible to negotiate an earlier starting date for a graduate scheme? I have no previous experience in investment beyond my own portfolio, so it seems that graduate schemes are my only option. Faye, could you answer that one?
Yes. So I'll be honest, we are just launching our graduate program. So I would say our preference would be to have everyone starting at the same time, because we have the inductions, we have everything that we want the program would evolve around. However, I guess if it was a very strong candidate and we were keen, then there would probably be flexibility in there. We did do it for the summer internship. We had people starting at different times because they had other commitments, but we were really committed to having them in. So it depends, I would say.
Devyn, from your perspective?
Yeah, it definitely depends. I would say smaller firms like Polen tend to have more flexibility because we're not running like large scale programs that we're trying to keep everyone on the same timeline for. So I can only really speak from our perspective, but we would certainly be open to negotiating start dates.
Perry, in your experience, when you started, did everybody start at the same time, or were there sort of generally different starting dates for others?
So I started on the Investment 2020 scheme, which is partnered with Gain. That was my traineeship, and they do recruit throughout the year. So that would be a really good place to look as well. And I'm not sure if asset managers sometimes offer off-cycle internships, but just do some more research and definitely have a look at Investment 2020. It's not an internship, but it's a year program. So it's not 2 or 3 years that you have to sign up for. So it might suit you.
Yeah, no, that's a good shout, actually. So Investment 2020, they have graduate positions, but they also have school leaver positions as well, I think, Perry. So if you're listening and you're at school and you're thinking, I don't want to go to university, how do I still get into investment? That would be my first port of call, to go to Investment 2020 and have a look at the options that they have in terms of apprenticeships. And just one other thing to mention about off-cycle internships. Where we hear about them, we encourage firms to post them on our jobs and opportunities board on our website. So anything outside of summer internships, which is included within the GAIN program, we put it on there, and we'll flag it again in the newsletter, so that trying to make sure that everybody's aware of it. So do keep having a look at that as well. Great. Anastasia, are internship and graduate roles open to recent graduates? Speaking for the GAIN internship program, yes, recent graduates are able to apply to that. It's typically if you've graduated within the last year is what we mean by recent. Faye, do you want to speak about Franklin Templeton if they apply directly?
Yeah, so we had it open that it was penultimate or final or recently graduated, and we'll probably keep it that way again. The only thing I would say is we probably are looking at the summer internship as a possible feeder into the graduate program. So if you're in your penultimate year, you've probably got more opportunities, but we're also looking at the summer internship being a feeder into other parts of the business. So that's why we will be open and flexible about the stage that you graduate.
Great. And Devyn, for Polen?
I would say we typically do look for an intern, someone that would be able to receive a full-time offer. So if you are looking for full-time employment and wanted to do an internship beforehand to test the fit and everything, we would be open to it. But we also do have entry-level positions that we recruit recent graduates for too. So probably yes on both fronts.
There's a question here from Chen-Yu Lin regarding the personal statement paragraph on the CV. Is this unique for investment management, and is it necessary for CV screening? The CV template for my school doesn't have that section, and I have a bit more experience as I'm an MBA student. Should I take out some work experience to fit in a personal statement? Devyn, do you want to take that?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I'm curious what Faye thinks, but I feel like that comes down to more recruiter preference. I have seen the personal statements can be great, but the caveat is you should tailor that statement to every position you're applying. because as we were talking about before, there have been times where I see a personal statement and it's clearly geared towards like consulting or investment banking, which is not the opportunity they're applying for. So it can hinder your application if you don't tailor it. But if it was in line with the role that you're applying for, it's just, I'm indifferent to seeing that on a resume.
Faye, any thoughts?
I think it depends if you've got a cover letter. If you've got a cover letter, you might get away without having a personal statement. I like the personal statement because I think it's a kind of free text opportunity for you to explain why you fit the role, and it's everything else is kind of talking about what you've done, whereas this is an opportunity to say why you're interested in the role. But to Devyn's point, absolutely needs to be tailored or else you shoot yourself in the foot. So I would say if you've got the cover letter and you're satisfied that you've really got that across, then you could take it out of your CV. If you don't have an opportunity for a cover letter, then I would put a few lines in as to why you think this role is what you're looking for and why you're suitable for it.
Great. I've got a question here. I was wondering, are the internships offered for GAIN candidates who are successful able to be converted to a graduate role? Okay, so just speaking from the GAIN program as a whole, it really depends. So some of the firms involved are sort of using the internship as an extended interview, if you like, and they're looking to make sort of offers at the end of that. And other firms they don't hire at the graduate level. They're just offering it as an experience only position. So I guess when you make your application, it would be really helpful if you could sort of specify what it is you're looking for. Are you looking for a full offer at the end of it? And then we'll try and match you accordingly to a company that would fit you best. Faye, I don't know whether you want to talk about Franklin Templeton, how you view the internship and what that means leading into the graduate program. I think you've touched on it a bit already.
Yeah, I was quite clear with everyone that I interviewed to say that this is a 10-week opportunity. There's absolutely no guarantees of anything permanent. So, and at that point, we didn't have the graduate program, but we converted 4 out of the 18 into permanent positions. So I guess you never know what might come. But now I would say that there would be opportunities out with the graduate program and also then feeding into the graduate program, but that there's never guarantees. So you have to keep an open mind and bear that in mind, and always come prepared to show how you can be flexible for what might come ahead.
And Perry, from your experience, because I think you did the training at Janus, is that right? And then converted that into a graduate position.
I was a grad. I did the traineeship. I was offered a role, but I'd secured another role with Alliance Bernstein. But they do, with the traineeships, convert most of them into full-time roles. So there's lots of different avenues.
And Devyn, from Poland's perspective? Yes, we do seek to convert interns to full-time opportunities. Again, it depends on performance and then size of the team and their hiring needs, but our internship program goal is always to be able to offer a full-time position.
And I think from my perspective that, you know, it's not a massive industry. I mean, everybody's quite connected and there's lots of movement between, you know, different firms within the industry. If you do a really good job on an internship and they don't have a graduate position at the end for you, that's not the end, because they are very, very likely to recommend you to somebody that they know in the industry, who they know is hiring, and, you know, it's all, you know, connected. So, you know, really go for it. And I would treat all of the internships, whether there's a graduate position on offer at the end of it, as an extended interview. And it's your opportunity to show what you can do. And through hard work and good performance, you know, things come out of that. So I would really encourage everybody to treat it in that fashion. Just answering a couple of questions. How does the GAIN program work? Does your application get sent to one investment firm randomly, or is it selectively chosen? Yes, you are allocated. We allocate you to companies one firm at a time, and that's based on the criteria the firm has given us. and how we're trying to match everybody accordingly. So what you've told us and what the firm's told us, and we'll match it up. So you will only ever, through the game program, be sent to one firm at a time, but there is a reallocation process. So for any reason, if you do get rejected at any point, then you can come back into the pool and we can reallocate you out to another firm. So it's by no means the end if you get rejected by the first firm. We had students in the program just gone that were reallocated 3 times and then were offered at the end of it. Sometimes the match hasn't been quite right at the beginning, and then we get to know how it should be matched eventually. So our goal is to get as many students placed as possible, and to get that match right. So yes, one firm at a time, but there are multiple opportunities potentially. And then I've got a question here. I'm interested in getting as much experience as possible whilst at university, and I'm applying to summer internships. Are there such a thing as winter internships as well as summer ones? I think we probably covered that with that's the off-cycle internships that we're referring to. So anything that's not summer, we probably call an off-cycle internship. So it could happen at any time of the year. Perry, do you know whether, did you do off-cycle internships as well, or was it just the summer stuff?
No, I only applied for summer, and unfortunately the one that I secured was cancelled because of COVID. But I think off-cycle are a more common in investment banking, but I think asset managers definitely do them. So it's definitely worth a look.
Question, if you are a final year student intending to take a master's degree after you graduate, but are still free for the summer internship and will essentially be lining up with penultimate year students, should you mention this in your application? I guess this is a question about applying and then deferring potentially. I'd be interested to hear your views on it, because sometimes we have students who are coming to the end. They want to get a position in the bank, I guess, but are thinking also about doing a master's. And do you ever offer that, I guess, to Faye and Devyn? Do you ever hire somebody and then they ask to defer, and then you might defer for a year while they go off and have a gap year or do a master's or something like that?
We have in the US, again, we're kind of still not so established in this yet, so we haven't so far. I think somebody would have to wow us to be able to have that kind of confirmed ahead of time. But I know in the US we have done that.
Yeah, I would say when I hear that question, my mind goes to class year. So I would definitely indicate that on your resume. If you're graduating in 2023 but doing a 1-year master's program, make sure that's clear, because you can then still be considered for the internship. And then as long as it's 1 year, you would still kind of fall in line with the full-time cycle. So as long as there wasn't a huge gap in between, we would be open to that. But a lot can change in a couple of years, so I'm not sure if we would be able to project that far out for a full-time role.
Yeah, I think if you are going to go and do a master's, and that's definite, but you have the summer free, from a game perspective, in terms of what we would allocate you to a company that doesn't have a graduate position to offer at the end of it. So it'd be like an experience only internship, because that would match what the company's looking for as well as what you're looking for. So would be really clear about that on your application, so that we can match you most successfully, because otherwise you'll be wasting your time and the company's time as well. I hope that answers your question. We have a question here on, can you recommend any particular font sizes or formatting styles for one's CV? P.S. I just want to say a personal thank you to Perry. She told me about GAIN when we met during my spring internship at Janus. I wouldn't have known about these events if it wasn't for her. So many thanks. So thank you, Perry. And Perry, maybe have you any particular fonts that you've seen that you like? And maybe we'll ask everybody their fonts. And I've just noticed the time, we've got about 5 minutes. So maybe this question and then one more, and then we might have to finish.
I think Calibri is one that I use a lot. I'm going to use it on my emails now. I wouldn't worry too much about fonts, as long as it's not italics or Roman numerals and they're not going to understand it, then maybe don't do that. But as we were saying before, as long as it's readable, presentable, and when you show that to someone else, they agree. Maybe someone in the industry, an older sibling, someone in your society that might have done these kind of applications. If it looks neat and tidy, it's readable, and it's laid out nicely, then you'll usually be fine. I didn't put any colour on mine. I know there's a lot of debate around that, but I didn't put any colour on mine. So it's up to you guys. I'm sure Devyn and Faye will have some opinions.
Yes, I do not like color on resumes, but that's a personal thing. I always err on like the cleanest version. So normal Calibri Times New Roman font, no pictures, no color, but that's just me.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think no color, clean, and for me, as long as I can see it, so don't make it so small. I'd rather you made it a page extra than trying to make it so tiny that you could fit it on 2 pages. Don't get too hung up on 2 pages. I mean, for me, 3 pages is fine. If it's any more than 3, then you probably are putting too much in. So yeah, I think font size is readable.
Brilliant. I'm not going to be able to answer all the rest of the questions that we have in here. We will get back to you. We'll take a note of these questions, and we will answer them through the website or through the newsletter somehow, and get those questions back to you. A lot of the questions are about the internship program, and they should, many of them, be answered in the FAQ section on the website. So do check that out. But otherwise, reach out to the GAIN team, and we will help you with that. Any final sort of comments from each of you in terms of your top tips for everybody doing their applications now? I mean, we're in peak application season now. I think October is the crazy month. So yeah, any last tips for the audience? Perry, do you want to go first?
Yes, I think echoing what Faye said earlier about the boxes. Sometimes they ask you, have you read an article? Is there a certain company you're interested in? Use that space to really, really put belief in yourself. And I think a lot of the time I wrote about fund manager articles that was to do with women in the industry, and that showed that I was really passionate about D&I in the industry, and that definitely helped because it was a bit more of a unique answer. So that's a really great way, I think, to showcase that, one, you're interested, you've done your research, and you do actually want to be in the industry. And hopefully upon doing your research, you'll realise that you actually do. So make sure you actually do want to be in the industry as well, because it will come across in those answers and in those interviews. You have to have a bit of conviction, but definitely have a lot of belief in yourself and use really powerful vocabulary.
Great, thank you. Faye?
No, I think Perry has made a really good point there, because that is, when you have that many applications, that is sometimes the only thing that differentiates. So that is really key. And also just keep an eye on all your applications, because there's nothing worse than you phoning up and inviting someone for interview and they're like, oh, what role was that for again? Because, you know, we get that a lot. So make sure you're on top of it and prepared. And when you pick up the phone, you've got it at hand so that you can see at a glance who's phoning you.
Yeah, I think a spreadsheet is always a really good idea of keeping track of where you are with applications. Devyn?
I'm struggling here. We've covered so much. I'm trying to think. I guess I would echo what Perry and Faye just mentioned. Definitely make sure you know who you're speaking to. That's happened to me a couple of times, and you're kind of immediately like, all right, you're not very interested in this role. So yeah, keep track of your applications, make sure you're aware of your deadlines, and put your best foot forward.
Brilliant. I think that's probably a good place to stop. 1 minute to go. I know we've got to ask some of it. Well, I think all that remains is me to thank you all so much for giving up your time this evening and sharing your knowledge and expertise. It's really appreciated. In terms of next steps for students listening, there are a number of other events coming up. We have a series of events in terms of helping you with your application that are running over the next few weeks. So do check out all of those. We will record all the sessions that we do and put them on our website as well. So if you've missed anything or want to go back to anything, check our website out, and then you'll be able to replay that. So thank you, Perry, Faye and Devyn, super appreciated, and have a good rest of evening.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you so
everyone.
much.
Thank you.
Good
Bye.
luck with your applications.
Yeah, good luck. Bye.